Opening arguments are set to begin just hours from now after the Senate voted to proceed with the charge of inciting an insurrection.
Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. as we learn how President Trump is reacting to the hearing. Hey, Griff.
That was indeed fascinating. Ainsley, Brian, and Steve, good morning. And Steve, you're right. Those opening arguments begin at noon. The House managers will go first. They'll have up to 16 hours to make their case. Then that'll be followed by equal time for the defense. Then after that, senators will get up to 4 hours to ask their questions. And then finally, 4 hours equally divided for closing arguments. Obviously, that won't all happen today. But all this comes after yesterday's day one making history. The Senate voted 56-44, saying the trial is constitutional. Now, in that vote, 6 GOP senators joined Democrats crossing the aisle. Here they are: Collins, Cassidy, Murkowski, Romney, Sass, and Toomey. The vote was fairly expected, though Cassidy was a bit of a surprise. The trial also opened with a graphic 13-minute recap of the attack on the Capitol as the lead House manager, Jamie Raskin, delivered a very emotional argument. Listen.
Senators, this cannot be our future. We cannot have presidents inciting and mobilizing mob violence against our government.
The big question, Ainsley, people are asking this morning is, what was lead defense attorney Bruce Castor doing when he made statements yesterday like this? Watch.
I'll be quite frank with you. We changed what we were going to do on account that we thought that the House manager's presentation was well done.
Now, 2 sources tell Fox News the former President Trump was, quote, furious and beyond angry at Castor's rambling performance. Trump's other lawyer, David Schoen, fared better, making the constitutionality argument, simply saying that the accused is not the president. Therefore, under the Constitution, you can't try him. Ultimately, all this comes down to that vote on whether to convict or not. That likely won't happen until next week at the earliest. And based on that first vote we saw yesterday, few expect enough Republicans to cross the aisle to convict. It would take 17 Republicans to do so. Brian, Ainsley, Steve?
All right, thanks, Griff. And just on the president's reaction, or the former president's reaction, I texted with Dan Scavino early this morning, and he says, well, reports of him being enraged and screaming are way out of proportion and over-reported. I was with him most of the day. We had meetings, we had lunch, then conference calls. Someone somewhere along the way, maybe a call he had in his residence, felt the need to say he was screaming, comma, was not true. So no doubt about it, I would be screaming if that defense attorney was defending me. He forgot to, I don't know, I put it here somewhere, prepare to defend the president. Maybe he only had 2 weeks. Maybe the problem was the other team got fired a couple of weeks ago when they had time to prepare, and the House seems to have prepared with all the resources. Ted Cruz weighed in. Ted Cruz would have done a much better job. Just about anybody would have done a much better job for the president. Listen.
Today typified what we're going to see this week, which is, it reminds me of Shakespeare. It's full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. We're going to see this week a whole lot of Democrats pounding the table. We're going to see a lot of moralizing and a lot of really venting their hatred for Donald Trump. In case you haven't been paying attention the last 4 years, the Democrats really, really, really hate Donald Trump. This is political theater because rather than address the real problems, the real challenges we have in this country, rather than focus on getting kids back in school and getting tens of millions of Americans back to work, the Democrats want a week of just political theater raging at Donald Trump.
Well, I think he's probably right, and that's one of the reasons why there will be no witnesses for the most part. It's going to be on the fast track. The best evidence that the Democrats had was that 13-minute video that was impossible not to watch, and it was shocking, and it was terrible. They feel that that shows exactly what happened, but the question isn't what happened on January 6th, because it was bad, and we all know that it was bad. But instead, the question is whether or not the president incited it. And so that is, and Brian, to your point about Mr. Castor, at one point he compared manslaughter to murder, which both involve culpability, which, given the fact that they're trying to figure out whether or not the president incited it, it was a bad way to go. And Ainsley, to Griff's earlier point, you know, the acquittal is a foregone conclusion. he will not be convicted. So why is it taking so long to get to that point?
Right, I know. Good point. They need those 17 votes, and they just don't have it. A few Republicans broke with party lines, but the majority of them did not. The majority of the Republicans say it's unconstitutional. You can't impeach a president after he's out of office. But the Democrats say they're doing this because they want to punish him. They don't want him to ever be able to run again.